Hey, welcome to World Entertainment, and we got a massive update regarding this new take on Star Trek on the big screen, as it has found its writers and producers. However, it might be bad news. So, it sounds like it's a fresh start, but with all the same problems. Because these guys were the writers of Dungeons and Dragons and Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, people will look and say, well, Homecoming was successful. Dungeons and Dragons did not succeed at the box office. It was a bomb. But it's what they do with the IPs that has people worried. So, like you see here, starting to say Paramount's new Star Trek film from Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly is already raising eyebrows. So, the duo behind Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and Spider-Man Homecoming are known for turning established IP into light, jokey, Marvel-style adventures. And that's where the issue's starting to come in. People are going, okay, is that the plan here? Are they just going to come in and pretty much do exactly the same thing that we've been seeing happening to Star Trek, just with a fresh coat of paint on it? Hopefully, that's not the case. Now, the articles that are talking about this, they do give something interesting about what could be happening here, and it's something I haven't heard before. But it's saying that this news of these two being hired comes from Deadline, and Deadline reports that the Homecoming writers and obviously Dungeons and Dragons, who's also directors, so they directed that one, are set to put a fresh spin on the property. So the filmmakers will write and direct and produce this new Star Trek movie. So that's kind of a bit worrying as well, that they're being given so much control, while plot details are being kept under wraps. This is what the source says. Sources say Goldstein and Daly's film is a completely new take on the Star Trek universe and not connected to any previous or current television series, movie, or prior movie development projects. That's very interesting what that says there. Now, obviously, when they say movie development projects, that means of the 900 movies they've announced since 2016. You know, there was even one year where they announced 4 movies, which I think was like 2 or 3 years ago. So the likes of the another J.J. Abrams movie and the Tarantino movie, the Noah Hawley movie, all of that. That's what they mean by development projects. It's the fact that they say it's not connected to any previous or current Star Trek series. That means that this thing is actually a total, not just fresh start, a full-on reboot of the entire franchise. That's what that would mean. Now, is that a good thing or is that a very bad thing? There's obviously some pros to it, but I think there's a hell of a lot more cons to it. The pros are obviously that they could establish something new and they can do something slightly different, and that they don't have to rely on some of that older stuff, especially if it's going to be like Kurtzman Trek. But that's also where the cons come into, is now you can completely ignore established lore, and that you don't have to follow the rules that were settled in real Star Trek, not the Alex Kurtzman bullshit or the J.J. Abrams, real Star Trek from the 1960s right up to 2005 when Enterprise ended. That's what we're talking about here, that they can completely ignore that, and now they could put their own stamp on this thing. And to be honest, when you're hearing that definitely sounds like Skydance is ready to let Kurtzman go. That this will be the launch of something brand new for Star Trek. Now, again, there's nothing here regarding whether or not this would translate down into the small screen. So it's the case of, is it launching on the big screen to then go onto the small screen? We don't know. It may not. This may just be they want something brand new, a brand new take, where it's not connected to anything before and put on the big screen. Now, the part where it says not connected to any previous or current TV show, that could also mean, so don't get totally kind of like, oh no, they're gonna destroy it. That could mean that they don't plan to set it in any timeline that we've currently seen or are currently seeing. They could set it somewhere completely different. That's what that could also mean. So when they're saying it's not connected to any previous show, that could mean, well, it's not connected to DS9. You know, it's not picking up right where DS9 left off. Or it's not connected to Voyager, you know, we're not seeing the continuation of a story centered around Voyager or something like that. That's what that could mean. Like, we're going to set it about 60 years after TNG ended or something like that. That's what that could mean. As for not connected to any of the current shows, that could also mean that as well, you know, because obviously between Discovery and Strange New Worlds to Discovery season 4 and 5 was launched into the season 3, wasn't it, when they went to the 32nd century. So obviously you would have that massive gap. However, if you were to put something in between that, obviously you could run into TNG and the original series and DS9 and stuff like that. So the way it's sounding though is that, and of course with Paramount saying they want a fresh start with Star Trek on the big screen, the fact that they're saying it's not connected to anything, even the movies, that does sound like they are just going to completely reboot Star Trek. Not certain characters or anything like that, but the whole franchise. Now again, this could only be for the big screen. We'd no idea what's happening with the TV end of things. And I think TV is where people would be more interested in, rather than watching them and listening to them constantly talking about the big screen. Oh, we need Star Trek for the big screen. You don't need Star Trek for the big screen. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really belong on the big screen. Yes, it's nice to have an adventure out in the cinema watching one of the Star Trek movies and stuff, but realistically it's made for television, and that's probably where it should stay. So like these articles, there's multiple articles, but parts of this article here that I'm looking at saying like Star Trek has always carried a more thoughtful, character driven tone. Even the Calvin timeline kept the core idea intact. That can be debated. So Goldstein and Daly's track record points in a different direction. Their version of Dungeons and Dragons swapped the franchise's grounded fantasy for a Guardians of the Galaxy style comedy. It was even woke, that's what this says. I don't know, I've heard it's not, but that's what this says. Fans of the property were split. The movie bombed with only 205 million worldwide gross. That's the worldwide now, not even just domestic. And many felt the movie talked down to the material. So now that same tone is being teased for Trek. Sources for Deadline, we talked about that part with the fresh and fun take on this thing, which is what they're saying they want, which isn't a great thing. And that is what they're saying. Like the source described their pitch. So we're told that it's not connected, but their pitch apparently was a fresh and fun take, which usually signals the Marvel formula. Fast jokes, quips during dramatic moments, and lighter emotional approach and stuff like that. That is a big concern, but at the same time, how much of Star Trek do these guys know? I don't really know these guys. I haven't seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I've really no interest in it. I saw the trailers. I was like, that looks fucking horrendous. Spider-Man Homecoming, it's not a good movie. For me, it's not a good movie. It's one of those movies that it ended. I was like, I didn't hate that, but I didn't enjoy it either. It was quite boring at the best part of times. The best part about it, of course, was Michael Keaton. So that's the only work I know of these guys. So, and I didn't even know they did that, to be honest. So it's kind of like, is this just going to be different coat of paint but the same cracks are behind it? I don't know. At this stage it's too early to just jump in and say this is going to be absolutely terrible, but it does worry me that they're saying it's going to be completely new. It's going to ignore and not have to be connected to anything that's previously been before. That just makes you go, oh, I don't know. So the full quote in Deadline reads this. This is the actual full quote of what they say. So, plot details are being kept under wraps for now, but sources say Goldstein and Daly's film is a completely new take on the Star Trek universe and not connected to any previous or current television series, movie, or prior movie development projects. That pitch falls in line with Skydance founder David Ellison's recent comments on an earnings call where he said the next Star Trek film would not be a sequel in the Chris Pine-led series, but something different with new actors. While not confirmed, sources also add it's likely that the new characters will be featured in this version. Well, obviously, like, my good God, that's the first time I've read that part. How stupid is that? It will feature new actors, and then they followed up saying not confirmed, but sources also add it's likely the new characters will be featured in this Yes, if it's a brand new thing and it's going to feature an all new, different, brand new cast, you would think the new characters would be new in the new thing. Jesus Christ. Deadline wrote that. They actually took that and wrote, Jesus Christ. And they ended it saying, as for Goldstein and Daly, the two have shown a knack for delivering scripts with new and fresh takes on existing IP, while also adding a fun and lightness that differentiated them from other films in the franchise. Again, that's concerning. Now, changing it up from certain things, fair enough, it can work with certain things, but you don't want to mess with the formula that makes certain things popular and successful. Star Trek is one of them things. They did that, and it failed spectacularly. It failed. The J.J. Abrams films, you know why there's no more right now? Because they failed. Kurtzman Trek is a failure. He is pumping so much money into that. By the way, I don't know if you've seen this, but I came across a video the other day, and I was like, what is this? It kept popping up on my feed, and I was like, screw it, I'll watch this. Paramount have just done a screening, this weird screening for Starfleet Academy. I don't know what they showed them or what they did, but they've paid all these influencers to come out. They flew them out to the Paramount lot to show them this thing. Problem is, when you went on and looked at who these people were, they're not influencers as in, like, they do Star Trek YouTube channels or anything like that. In fact, they don't seem to have any interest in anything sci-fi, never mind Star Trek, because they were all hair and makeup people. And I don't mean in the industry, I mean TikTok women who give you makeup tutorials and shit like that. They flew these people out, have paid money, put them up in hotels, gave them goodie bags, jackets, all this crap to promote Starfleet Academy. Who do they think they are bringing to the table to watch Star Trek? No one. You remember the influencers that they brought in for the whole Rings of Power crap, and then it turns out none of them were even Rings of Power or Lord of the Rings fans. One of them, she got asked, the one who was like, my girl Gladriel, she got asked, if you remember, hey, what have you thought of Rings of Power now that it's out? And her response was, oh, I haven't watched it yet. I'm watching House of the Dragon, and that's brilliant, so it's got a lot to live up to. This was meant to be one of the biggest fans of Lord of the Rings. She wasn't even bothering to watch it. So that's where you're kind of going, you've a lot of issues with Star Trek right now. To try and change the formula that makes it work and has made it endure for 60 years, to mess with that formula, why change the recipe? This has become new Coke. That really is like, hey, it's the same great look, but with a brand new, better flavor, and then people rejected it, and what did they do? They had to go back to the original formula. That's the issue they're running into here. So, again, I'm not going to completely poo-poo over this whole thing as of now. There is a lot of concern coming in from it. I am quite concerned about this. It's going to be something completely brand new. Now, the other part is, that's Deadline saying that, their source is saying that, but that doesn't quite line up with David Ellison saying it's not going to be the Calvin timeline. He literally only said it won't be a sequel to the Calvin timeline. So how they jumped from that to it'll have zero connection to anything with the brand Star Trek on it, I don't quite know. But what do you guys think? Does this get you hyped? Does this get you concerned? Do you think we could be looking at a brand new fresh start, but as I said, with all the same problems? Do let me know in the comments. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, and hit that hype button and check out memberships, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.